Put this video up as a response to Tony over at TheSustainableCentre. After watching his video about the evolution of 40k from 5th to 6th edition, and I posted a comment basically saying that I didn't agree with everything that he was saying, and basically I'm just going to sort of put my opinion out there as to what I feel and just the things that I did disagree with. And so 5th edition of 40k ended up becoming basically not necessarily a war game. Dog's jumping on the couch. Ended up more of either who's got the best guns or who's got the most guns. It shone back onto the days of like the old redcoats and musket gun lines, and whoever had the most muskets won the particular battle. That's pretty much what 40k ended up like. You had the armies like Grey Knights who had lists and lists and lists of special rules, and you had like Dark Eldar Leaf Blower army that just had hundreds and hundreds of shots a turn, and that's what 40k 5th edition turned into. It was this problem of how many shots can I take in my army. I can take more, so I win. And the good thing about 6th edition is 6th edition has changed that massively. It was really sort of grabbed 40k by the ankles and shook the life out of it, which is great for the game. It's fantastic for all the players that enjoy playing it on a tactical level, on a more deep intellectual level even. However, there seems to be this misconception that a competitive 6th edition army involves dropping every single vehicle that you have from your army and spamming as much infantry as you can, which I'm afraid is incorrect. I've seen and played against plenty of infantry horde armies, and I've still not lost against one. On paper it seems really effective, but on the tabletop it just doesn't transpire that way. 6th edition hasn't turned into leave the tanks at home and bring the men. It's not like that at all. What 6th edition has turned into is created a more dynamic battlefield, if you will. It's not so much I'm on this side of the table, you're on that side of the table, and we're going to shoot each other until one of us is dead. It's not like that anymore. The premises of 6th edition now is, can you sort of knock your opponent out of their comfort zone? Can you give them more to deal with than their army list can possibly deal with? If that makes sense. It's the simplest way I can put it. That's the way I sort of build my army list, is rather than thinking, right, I need to get as many scoring units in as possible, I think I need to get as many problems in this army list as my opponent can possibly deal with. That's why the last Throne of Skulls in November I went to, I ended up winning Best Tunic Player, winning 4 games out of 5 with an army that most people think is garbage, particularly in 6th edition, which is wrong. Any army can be powerful under the right general. Sorry, I keep looking past the camera. I'm watching sports at the same time. I apologise. So it's not. 5th edition was massively based on your army list. If you took a Grey Knight army, you took Dark Eldar, you pretty much win all, most if not all of your games. It was pretty standard. 6th edition now is less about the army and more about the player. I've seen better players with worse armies win games against better armies under the helm of a worse player, and I myself have managed to beat better armies through the premises of being a good player. One of my regular opponents, we were practicing for the Throne of Skulls, and I gave him my army list and I said, make an army that is specifically tooled to kill my army. We played 2 games. The first game he beat me horribly in the second turn, and then the second game I beat him through grit and guile and through the implementation of tactics and thought and planning, managed to win the second game. And that's what 6th edition is about. It's about, more than ever, counteracting your opponent's tactics and being able to change split-second thoughts. Change your plan. You think your opponent's going to do one thing and he does another, so you have to change your battle plan. You change again, and you keep changing. And this is why I've fallen in love with 6th edition as a rule set. When it first dropped, I thought it was garbage, but having played it and experienced it, and really starting to feel the enjoyment of the cinematicness of it, and the in-depth layer of tactics and knowledge you can gain from every single game that I play. It's fantastic. So we'll look at the point that was raised in Tony's video, was about spamming as many scoring units as possible. You look at taking minimum of 6 troops in every army list. Well, in all fairness to Tony, he knows what he's talking about, but it's sort of a naive way to look at building an army. To paraphrase something that he said, if building an army list is like constructing a toolbox, if your sole purpose is to spam as many scoring units as possible, you can get to the point where you end up with a handful of screwdrivers when all you need is a hammer. And that's sort of the premises of the problem with his argument that he was making. 6th edition is about getting that balance between having the scoring models there, having the scoring units, yet having the models available to go forward and cause the damage. I'll just quickly revert back to my point about winning the best Tyranny player at throwing schools. I had 21 scoring models in a 1500 point army. That's by no means spamming scoring units, and yet I won 4 out of 5 games. And ironically, the one game that I lost was the 1 objective each mission, which historically doesn't need a lot of scoring units. So it's like I say, it's just naive to think of it as, right, so vehicles are now garbage, so I'm going to spam infantry. But I'll argue the point that not all vehicles are garbage. If you're transport that's not open topped or an assault vehicle, then yes, you are garbage. Rhinos needed balancing, and I'm glad that they did. However, if you start the game now in a Rhino or any other transport that's not open top, like a Devilfish or a Chimera or a Razorback, anything that can hold men that's not open topped, the earliest you're going to see combat, if that's what you want, is turn 3. And for a combat unit, like, I don't know, say 10 Corn Berserkers in a Rhino or 10 Death Company in a Rhino used to be a fantastically cheap way of delivering that awesome combat unit. And now it's just not worthwhile. You can't fly forward and be protected from combat anymore because you hit on 3s most of the time, not 6s now. So your vehicles just drop like flies. However, whilst transports may be garbage now, and I will concede that the Rhino is now going to have its name changed to the mobile coffin, because that's all it is a coffin for the guys inside. The gun platform vehicles are still cream of the crop amongst the best units in the game at the moment. You look at the Tesla barges, you look at the Dakar Preds, you look at Tau Hammerheads, anything that sole purpose is to be a gun platform, they're still fantastic at doing that. And I'd argue even more so now that you can't shake them and they're out of action for a turn. You get a glancing hit on Armour 13, it's like a whole point, but that vehicle is still 100%, 100% effectiveness in the next turn. Whereas in 5th edition, if you glance the vehicle, the minimum you're going to do is shake it and stop it firing for the next turn. So, vehicles aren't completely garbage, it's just about picking and choosing the right ones. And sort of leading in now to another video that I want to do, so I'm not going to go too much down this path, but 6th edition is become the pinnacle now of being efficient with your points. You can't waste a single point anymore. Everything in your army list has to be equipped for its specific role. You can't throw in a heavy weapon on a squad just because you've got the points anymore. You've got to think, am I going to fire this heavy weapon? Am I going to really get the use out of that piece of war gear that I'm putting on my captain, etc, etc, etc. And it's thing is, it's hard to explain, 6th edition. It's not, there's no simple answer at the moment. It's not been out that long for it to be properly analysed and to see exactly how the meta game's going to fall. Because, let's take this example, okay? Everyone in the tournament scene, competitive gaming scene, drops vehicles completely, okay? Which isn't the case, because I've played at 2 tournaments at 6th edition and still going up against 2, 3 4 vehicles at a time, on a consistent basis. Albeit there's a lot more flyers around now, but that's a different matter entirely. So let's say everyone drops vehicles entirely and takes nothing but infantry. If that happens, the meta then shifts that everyone starts dropping melta in favour of plasma, or the equivalents in the codexes, because the extra range is better than having that penetrative power that you don't need anymore. So when you have all these armies that now are highly built to take on infantry armies, then a guy rolls up to a tournament, spamming chimeras. What are you going to do when all you've got is plasma guns? Yeah, you can penetrate them, but it's going to be tough. And this is the meta shift hasn't really settled yet. So to sort of get into any sort of deep analysis of it at this point is it's kind of stupid, and just like doing an experiment with having all the variables in front of you. It's just never going to work. It's never going to get a valid result. But the point I can't stress enough is 6th edition is not about spamming scoring units. I'll give you my example of my Tyrannid army. Another example is Necrons. I've seen Necron armies that have 15 warriors in it. 3 units of 5, and they're all in Night Scythes. That's not spamming scoring units. So Necrons are a stupid example because you'll know how much I hate Necrons, but it's it just validates the point that 6th edition is it's now a thinking man's game. You have to think, not so much I need to capture objectives with a million men. It's more, how can I win this game? How can I outthink my opponent? And if you go about writing an army list or playing a game in that respect, then you'll not only probably win more games or enjoy your games more, but you'll enjoy this edition of rules more. Don't worry so much about, now I can't take my vehicles, I have to take men, because that may not be the case. If you work in a specific sort of job for your vehicles to do, by all means throw them in there. And of course, you guys out there watching will probably disagree with me, just like I disagree with some of the points that Tony raised and how people disagree with that. And that's the whole point of debate. When you get these ideas out there, and that's how the game evolves and how army lists come about and how theories and thoughts and just debate is the best thing for anything. I love a good debate. I love putting my points across, hearing other people's arguments. So if you've got any responses to what I've just said, your comment boxes below, send me a message, do a video response, whatever it may be. I'd love to hear from you guys. And we always like to get some debates going. So that's pretty much what I've got to say about 6th edition. Obviously Tony raised a lot of other points, pretty much all the other ones that I agree with, so I'm not really going to go into them too much, about the defence line and the quad gun and flyers. Everything he said about that, is pretty much spot on like he normally is. The only thing I wanted to obviously make a point about was this thing about infantry and spamming scoring units and how it's not necessarily the case. So that being said, I'm out. So yeah, cheers guys, thanks for watching.